everybody, what's going on? TJ here from Midlife Karting Crisis, and wanted to stop in, give you a quick update. Haven't posted a video in a couple of weeks, and well, by the time you get done watching this one, you'll see why. It's been pretty busy around the shop here with a brand new project that I'm going to share with you here in just a couple of seconds. Real quick though, I did want to take this opportunity again to thank everyone who watches the videos, gives us a thumbs up, leaves a comment, and also, more importantly, you people that subscribe to the channel. That means so much to me. It goes a long way in making sure these videos get out to where other people can see them and maybe gain a little knowledge or hopefully some inspiration to continue to chase their dream, much like I've done here through motorsports and more recently through ice hockey. So much appreciated. And if you haven't already, please take just a quick second, go down, click subscribe, and then there's a little tiny bell there. You want to hit that bell as well. We call it ringing the bell. And what that does will give you notifications here on your YouTube account to let you know when we post new videos and new material. So that goes a long way in helping us out. You don't have to spend a dime to do it, and it is greatly appreciated. But I'm going to give you an update on where we stand with the kart, because we're almost ready to fire this thing up and put it on the racetrack. But something else has happened, and I'm pretty excited about it. Have a look. Check it out. Midlife Karting Crisis is about to become Midlife Racing Crisis. We bought a race car. This is an SCCA Formula FST, sometimes called Formula FST. It's got a Volkswagen Boxster motor in it, 116 cc's or 1.6 liters. It runs big tires like you'd find on a Formula Ford. These are the rain tires that are on it right now, and I've got most of the body work off. In fact, we'll just go ahead and pop this off too. But there you go. Open wheel, open cockpit Formula race car, 4-speed transmission. A lot of this is stock Volkswagen, which means you can run right down to AutoZone or your favorite auto part store and buy parts and pieces. Everything from starters, oil pumps, brake components, axle components, brake drums, brake rotors. All this stuff is straight off of the Volkswagen Beetle. They've been adapted into these purpose-built cars. This car evolved from Formula V, which uses a smaller version of the Volkswagen motor and much skinnier, narrow tires. These cars are obviously going to be a little faster because of the bigger motor and the bigger tires. In fact, you can see a set of tires over there. Again, these are the rain tires. So we run a racing slick when we're out in dry conditions. But you see a very simple setup. It's got a monoshock in the back, Penske. Completely adjustable. It's even adjustable from inside of the cockpit, although I still got to learn what that's all about. And up here on the front, there is a torsion bar type setup in the front end of this car that I'm still learning about. A couple of shocks up here as well. So it's fully suspended, which should make it a much smoother ride than the go-kart. One of the things we found is some of these tracks are getting pretty rough, and as you get a little older, get into your 50s like I am, some of those tracks can really take a physical toll on you, and not only on race weekend, but the weeks following. So this is going to be nice to get into a suspended race car. But here it is. It's got a lot of work that needs to be done to it. Everything from the body to just cleaning up, just some cosmetic things, polishing all this old, sanding some of this old paint off, repainting that. Gonna need some cockpit padding in here, and then we're gonna have to pour a seat that is that matches me. Came with a seat, but it was for the previous driver, and we're just gonna really try and tighten up some of that body work and make it look a little better. But there you go. Got two sets of body work. This is almost a complete set. It's missing one piece that was tore up in an accident. But I think we're gonna go with a blue or something close to it. There it is. This car is capable of a top speed of somewhere in the neighborhood of 130 miles an hour, depending on what racetrack you're at, the conditions and all that fun stuff. We race at a lot of the same racetracks we raced with the shifter kart, and on the stopwatch, these cars are going to be anywhere from 4 to 8 seconds slower. They are certainly faster in a straight line than the shifters are, but they certainly are not able to corner as quickly. But it is going to be fun nonetheless. It's going to be a very inexpensive way to go race car racing on a race weekend, minus crash damage, because that's always kind of the wild card. but you're going to spend about the same amount of money we spend to race the shifter over there, as far as out of pocket to get to a weekend and hang out and have some fun and be competitive. So there'll be a lot more information on this car as we go along. I just took delivery of it earlier this week, about 3 days ago. So haven't really done a whole lot to it because the cart wasn't quite finished, and we've got a race coming up with Championship Enduro Series here in a couple of weekends. So got to get that thing finished up before we even touch this. Right now the plan is to just take the rest of this year in the spring to really go through the car. The motor needs to be rebuilt. Very inexpensive compared to other forms of motorsport. A rebuild on that motor is not too much more than it would cost to have the Honda over there on the Honda CR125 on the cart rebuilt. So that'll be fun. I got a couple of people lined up. We're going to pick an engine builder for that. And really after that, the belts are going to need to be changed out. Those do have a lifespan on them, and they will reach the end of their lifespan here sometime in August. Which is no big deal because I won't be running the car anyway. There's a fire extinguisher, the fire suppression system. And yeah, just some of the things here, like we're going to clean the wiring up here, get that a little neater. Some other things you see like down here, huge cutout right here for the steering arm. I don't think it needs to be near that big. And as you can see inside the cockpit, that just allows for a bunch of road debris to bounce up and get in the car. So we're going to do a little work on that. Try and get this body to fit a little better than it does, make it look a little nicer, and try to have a really cool looking car. Goal is to get all these stickers off here and all these decals, and if we can match this blue paint up, we'll do it. It's got two colors of blue. This scoop here had been redone, and I'm not sure if it comes through in the video, but you can see it's clearly a darker color blue. It's also the same color as the nose, and it doesn't look very good. And of course, we'll have to change that number. That's not going to work. We've got to have the full number. We're going to run number 93 or some derivative thereof. But yeah, I'm going to try and make it look like the 1970, 1971 Johnny Lightning Indy cars. Since the cars have a similar shape, meaning they're open cockpit, open wheel with no wings. So that should be a pretty easy transition to make it look cool like the Johnny Lightning cars that Al Unser drove to 2 Indy 500 wins. We're very excited about this. Still learning about this. There's a lot of things you don't know about these cars. I can tell you that is a Citation chassis. And again, if you're looking for the differences, if you're going, hey, this looks like a Formula V. It's very similar to a Formula V. This is kind of Formula V's big brother. Bigger engine, bigger tires, racing slicks instead of the little skinny narrow tires that you see on a Formula V car. So they're a little bit faster. Again, not really all about how fast you go. It all bounces out if you're all going about the same speed anyway. But these should be a ton of fun. I really spent a lot of time investigating this and landed here. So let's talk a little bit about how I came to this decision. So I wanted to take a few minutes to just kind of share with you how I came to the conclusion to look into car racing and eventually land in the Formula FST series. If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I was a racer clear back starting in high school, which would have been in the mid-'80s. For those of you who don't, I started my career racing karts. From there progressed into bigger cars, USAC midgets, stock cars, modified stock cars. Did a little Formula Ford school, did a couple of Skip Barber racing schools and some cars very similar to these that you see over here. But in 2000, I pretty much walked away from the sport. It was getting very expensive. Fast forward to 2015 to where my wife gave me one of the most amazing gifts I've ever received in my life. And that was an Indy racing experience, which if you're not familiar with that, they have older Indy cars. When I say older Indy cars, they're cars from the early 2000s that are no longer being ran. They've been retrofitted with Honda motors out of the Goldwing motorcycle, so 1600cc motor. And they take these to different racetracks and they give you a little bit of instruction and they give you an opportunity to drive around some of the IndyCar tracks. Well, I got to do this at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway a couple of days before the Indy 500, which racing Indy cars was always kind of my dream and something I grew up wanting to do. And my wife, Judy, was able to make that come true, which was just one of the neatest gifts. In addition to that, I also got to go to a two-seater ride at 180 miles per hour, which is I could do a whole nother video on how cool that experience was. But needless to say, after that experience, I kind of got bit by the bug again and decided to go racing. I'd actually looked at an SCCA sports car, the Formula 500 and the Formula 600, which again, we could do a whole nother video on what those cars were, but the economics of it were just didn't make sense. If I was going to buy a car, I was going to be somewhere north of $15,000. And at that time, especially since I'd been out of a car for that point for almost 15 years, it just made sense to get back into karting, and started back out in one of the entry-level classes, Yamaha KT100. Ran the Masters division of that for a year and a half before I acquired a shifter kart with the goal of going road racing on the bigger racetracks like we do with the Championship Enduro Series, and that's what I did. As I mentioned, I run a Honda CR125, great reliable motor, super inexpensive to run, super inexpensive parts and pieces. Rebuilds on them are very economical as far as motorsports goes. But unfortunately, the powers that be at some of the larger racing organizations, which kind of by de facto have a huge influence on what the other racing series do, they started to phase out the Honda CR125. Well, if they're phasing them out, that means the guys that maybe don't even run that bigger series all the time, but they still want to show up and run 1 or 2 races with that bigger group in their area, they abandoned the CR125 and started going to some of these imported engines. They're purpose-built kart engines. Most of them made in Italy. They're known as KZ motors. They're great motors. They're fantastic at what they do. They're just more expensive. And to get into a new KZ motor, we're looking at anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000, and that's just for the motor. And I just could not, in my brain, make that make sense for a go-kart motor. I mean, you can go to Pep Boys and buy a Chevy small block for less than that. For the racetrack, typical race weekend can run anywhere from $700 to $1,000, depending on how far we have to travel. And to do all that, to go and race against maybe 2, maybe 3 other people that brought Honda CR125s with them, just didn't make sense. So started looking at options, and one of the things that was presented to me, a friend of mine, you may have seen him on this channel, Logan Miller, had started racing in this Formula FST class. And when I started looking at the pros and cons, weighing out the expenses and what have you, it turns out for what a quality 2 to 3 year old shifter kart would cost without a motor. All right, this is just a rolling chassis. Maybe it's something that ran in one of the SCUSA national events. Those guys will run a chassis 1, maybe 2 weekends, and they sell them. They essentially throw them away. But for about the price of what one of those rolling chassis would cost, I could have an entire car ready to race, which is what I did. I have, when this is all said and done, I'm going to have under $5,000 in this Formula car over here. You could not buy a nationally competitive shifter kart for $5,000. You cannot build a new one, not even close. You cannot get a brand new rolling chassis shifter kart for $5,000. They just don't exist. By the time you start putting the motors on it, and it's not like you order the motor, pull it out of the box, and put it on. You have to take it to your builder. They usually need to be assembled. There's usually a little bit of machine work that's done on them before they're assembled. So by the time you're all said and done, you're looking at $6,000 to $7,000 for a current competitive shifter kart, and I just wasn't going to do it. And I'm not judging those that do. Everybody has their own thing they're comfortable with. For me, I just couldn't justify in my mind spending that kind of money. So I'm going to keep the CR125, and I'm going to continue to race this as long as there are other people to race with. Absolutely love racing with the guys at the Championship Enduro Series. We just had some great times, made some great friends, and I still will be running a limited schedule of that, as we'll be running a limited schedule with the Formula FST car. That's kind of where we're at. So chances are better not. Midlife Karting Crisis is probably going to go through a little bit of a rebranding, a little bit of a name change, and we're going to be following all of our exploits on this. So again, would like to hear what your thoughts are. Have you ever thought about going Formula car racing or doing some other type of racing besides kart racing? Leave a comment down below. And again, if you would please help us out, go ahead and subscribe and click that notification bell. It doesn't cost you a dime, but goes a long way in helping Facebook get our videos, our messages out to other people that just like you are interested in what's going on. Once again, everybody, thanks for watching. Appreciate your continued support. We'll talk to you soon.